Hey y'all, I'm Mia Ann Edwards, and I'm here today to discuss how culture can affect something so simply and small as cornbread. We will be delving into its historical origins. We will also be talking about the different regions and variants of cornbread, and we will be talking about how cornbread is a staple American dish. When I was younger, I grew up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I was born in Tuscaloosa, Alabama in 2007. Roll Tide. When I was around the age of 2, my family started to relocate a lot because of my mother's job. We'd move all across the region. And I noticed something very different about cornbread, as it's one of my favorite dishes. I noticed that in other places it was very different. And growing up, I always thought, oh, it's just the location. Maybe they didn't have these things, and that's why it tasted weird. But as I did some research on it, I realized that it's actually all about culture. According to Professor Tolbert, who wrote the Culture of Cornbread article, cornbread is as American as apple pie, but its origins actually date back far beyond the inception of this country. So that means that cornbread wasn't originally created in America, but actually created in Mesopotamia. And the reason as for this is because the ancient Aztecs, Mayans, and Incas grew corn primarily as their staple crop. That was their most vital source of fuel, and it was the most sustainable thing they could grow. Cornbread back then is not the same as it is today. It was very brittle, very hard. They cooked it over a light fire, and it was just very hard to eat, but it had all the nutrients that they needed. Eventually, cornbread evolved and changed into what we know and love today, and it was also used during the Revolutionary and Civil Wars to lighten the hearts of soldiers and to increase morale. It is also very different according to different variations, especially along the region. According to the renowned Cajun chef Fair, the southern variety of cornbread can be made with a white or yellow cornmeal and has like a buttery finish, and it calls for more eggs, which gives it like this really cake-like texture. Whereas northern cornbread, on the other hand, is not made with as many eggs. It's made with yellow cornmeal and is very crumbly. So not like the cornbread that I know. The differences in cornbread are a testament to the cultural influences people have had on cornbread throughout the generations. So back in the day, cornbread was not just used as a means to sustain people, but it was also used to increase morale, as I said previously, during the wars. It's also a very American dish, more so than I think American pie, just because of all of the events it has been in. It has been used to increase the morale of soldiers and to be a lifeline for them during the Revolutionary and Civil War, which I don't see what gets quite more American than that. It is also used back after the Civil War when freed slaves would go up north or down like Louisiana, and a lot of them opened their own restaurants. And most of them, they would cook cornbread because it's one of the things that they knew and loved how to cook. And based off that, it kind of changed throughout generations after that because each person kind of had their own idea of what cornbread should be like. And that is why we have such variations of cornbread nowadays. Cornbread, though, it's another way it's an American staple dish, is because back in European times, when the first settlers came to America, they adapted cornbread from the Native Americans, and the Native Americans taught them how to make cornbread. Of course, it's not like the cornbread we like today. It was a lot like the Mesopotamian cornbread, but the European settlers, they kind of created it their own way with a little bit more milk, a little bit of sugar, and that's why we have such sweet cornbread today. And a lot of the reason why they did cornbread so much back in those times was because they sent a lot of their wheat back to Europe during the time. And that's why there's such a different and variations of cornbread and all Culture has had many big impacts throughout major historical events like the American Revolution. However, it has also a major impact on our everyday lives, and it usually goes unnoticed. Even in cornbread, something so small and so sweet, culture has greatly affected it. So whether you like your cornbread crumbly or moist, sweet or crunchy, dipped in milk or with jalapenos, it doesn't matter because I think we can all agree that in the end, Cornbread is a staple American dish and will always be an American delicacy. Thank you. Here is my bibliography for my speech. I used Professor Tolbert's Culture of Cornbread, and I also used Frere's Renowned Cajun Chef, the Battle of the Cornbreads website to find some of my sources. I also used a Southern Living magazine, and I used Katie Catherine, which is this little like hometown kind of cook girl. And those are all my sources that I used to reference all of the stuff for cornbread. So thank y'all so much.